Hello and welcome to some more Star Citizen. CIG have just released their latest financial statements. These are very simple sort of company accounts for the year ending 2022. Yes, these are basically a year behind, but they do allow us to delve deeper into what CIG have attained income-wise for Star Citizen and Squadron 42 over the project's 11 years, as we also have the income earned for 2023 as well available to us. CIG also talk about where the project is now and where it's going. We're going to be looking at CIG's funding, its costs, its financial health, staff, expansion, all that sort of jazz, and some of their sort of statements about what's to come. So please bear in mind, these figures are rough, as there might be some changes with currency conversions. There are obviously the figures that Cloud Imperium are sharing with us in a very simple way. It's also some data from the funding tracker. The accuracy of this is reasonable, but it's not going to be perfect, right? So let's start out with how much the project has been funded. How much is it crowdfunded? How much money has it made over its 11 years of crowdfunding? Between 2012 and 2022, it appears to have made 637 million. That's a lot of money. In 2023, they raised 134 million-ish. So they raised 117 million in general funding from ships and that sort of stuff throughout the period of 2023. But that's not the whole story, as it doesn't include subscriptions and other income, which includes partnership income with various hardware and software vendors, sponsorship income, and various local incentives based on the nature and location of development and production activities. So we're going to roughly assume that this set of money, this additional money, is around the same as what it was in 2022, and that basically gives them an additional 17 million, so 134 million for 2023. CIG also have private investments from Clive and Keith Calder, so this adds up to $63.23 million. They got 17.23 in March of 2020, and they got 46 million in December of 2018. All of this together is an approximate funding of Star Citizen to date of around $834 million. Star Citizen looks like it will easily break the $1 billion in crowdfunding barrier before it's released. However, that might not be the same with Squadron 42. That could certainly be released before they smash through that, especially if it's released in 2024 or before the halfway point of 2025. So Cloud Imperium said a lot about what happened throughout 2022 in regards to their funding. The 2022 accounting shows that Cloud Imperium grew again, with total income up 30% on last year's record-breaking annual performance. The regular and improving game deliveries with increased playability and stability was a key part of our success in 2022. But unlike in 2021, the performance was more consistent throughout the year. Also, departing from prior years leading up to 2022, the US growth in income was higher than that of the rest of the world. It is difficult to draw direct conclusions for this shift, but the instability caused by the Russian-Ukraine conflict and the generally slower rebound of the European economy in 2022 compared to the US seems to be a likely factor. Costs, including CAPEX, which is capital expenditure, also increased by 29%. Although excluding CAPEX, principally focused on the rest of the world offices, trading costs rose moderately compared to income by 18% in 2022. Nearly all cost categories were up on the previous year, but overheads, external game development, and publishing operations, including customer servicing costs, were the main drivers for this increase in costs. Salaries and related costs for game development and support remained the highest spend category, accounting for almost half of the total operational spend in 2022, and almost 60% when factoring in growth in external game development costs, managed mainly through the US. 2022 continued the trend of record-breaking growth, with revenue up 32% to 114 million. This was fueled by a growth in player numbers and increased player time arising from regular content delivery earlier in the year and improved game stability throughout the full year. Subscriptions were up 6% to 5.3 million, and other income raised 21% to 11.4 million, driven in part by the growth of the UK development and associated credits arising marketing thereof. The vast majority of revenues are of starter pack pledges, granting access to Star Citizen's alpha game, as well as spaceships and digital items immediately delivered and playable in the game. A significantly smaller fraction of revenues came from pledges of concept ships. I just thought it was a nice little bit of extra info there that Cloud Imperium shared. So, how much have CIG spent then? So, trading costs from 2012 to 2022 are around 631 million. If we assume that costs are roughly the same for 2023, although I am going to add on 10% more for wage increases and new staff, let's say an additional 136 million for the year of 2023, then the total costs are roughly 767 million to date. Going back to some CIG statements on 2022's costs, with much still to do, Cloud Imperium pushed forward with its objectives and the commensurate growth in its cost base accordingly. Costs increased by 18% over 2021 to 116.5 million, and capital expenditure, primarily for the flagship offices in Manchester, England, and the new facilities in Frankfurt, Germany, rose to 12.9 million compared to only 2 million in 2021. The US operations grew slightly in 2022, although like the previous year, there was a continued shift in the mix of personnel as publishing, community, and marketing teams grew, whilst internal development contracted in the US, although with a rise in management of more external development resources, mainly from the associated entity Turbulent, which is based in Montreal. So basically Cloud Imperium saying there that a lot of the work is now being done by Montreal, especially in the US, and they sort of contracted some of the development teams or some of the internal staff and internal devs for external devs in the Montreal studio, at least when we're talking about the US, because the rest of the world operations grew considerably, with headcount up 18% on 2021 and additional space taken on to facilitate future growth. All cost areas except general and admin, G&A, increased in 2022, although the growth in publishing operations was not as significant as in the previous year, which had set the groundwork for the projected growth in customer numbers and playtime, which trended upward towards the end of 2021 and continued on an even greater trajectory upward in 2022. Salaries are the biggest expense for CIG as they grow their workforce and their studios and all that sort of jazz. They increased employees in 2022 from 748 to 860 by the end of the year, plus externally another 150 at Turbulent. Salaries and contractor costs being 66.8 million during that year, though CIG did expand their studios massively, which contributed to some of the other big costs increases and all that sort of jazz. So what's CIG's health looking like? What's the money in the bank? So CIG showed their net position as basically money in the bank at the end of 2022 as 64.7 million. That's relatively healthy. Now, if we translate that based on the figures that we talked about to end of 2023, to me, I'm expecting them to have around 67 million in the bank. Not a lot more, only a couple of million more. I'm expecting there to have been a reasonable amount of costs there, and obviously there isn't going to be an increase in wages and staffing costs. That said, there could have been massive changes in costs that I'm unaware of, so we'll sort of have to wait until Cloud Imperium put out their statement next year to know for sure. Certainly CIG are going to see less external dev costs with the acquisition of Turbulent, but then obviously more internal costs. Other costs might potentially come down, but staff costs are going to have gone up at least 10%. They keep on getting more and more staff. I think it's around 1,100 that they have now. CIG continues. In keeping with prior years, the 2022 accounting shows the group continued to spend its income on the ongoing development and publishing of the games in its unrelenting objective to deliver a world-class gaming and social experience for its players and community, beside reinvesting into its people and partners, particularly Turbulent in Canada, whose teams servicing Cloud Imperium games grew considerably during the year. It also put substantial funds into its new offices and facilities to create a destination space for its post-COVID returning staff, creating an environment to encourage collaboration, innovation, and creativity to make all the hard work undertaken and still to come more pleasant for its growing number of people working on the games. Consequently, the funds on the balance sheet moved little in 2022, despite a very successful year, and they remained earmarked for future activities planned and required to push the games forward to the commercial launch and the ongoing evolution of the underlying technology and intellectual property being developed. So that's an important thing to make clear with Star Citizen. They are supposed to be spending almost all of that money on the game. Well, really, all of the money on the game in some way, shape, or form. Obviously, having some cash reserves, super important to make sure that they are able to continue producing the game, and stuff could happen for sure where they need more money one year and less money another. Also, they're going to want to run a big advertising campaign for Squadron 42's release. But I know some people are going to be saying, why haven't CIG got more and more money in their bank account all of the time and year on year? Well, they're supposed to be spending that on the game, and hopefully that will make a much better game because of the way they are spending their money. What about now, though? So, 2023, Cloud Imperium are saying that despite the significant cost of dedicating more resources to Squadron 42 at the expense of ongoing regular releases on Star Citizen, particularly in the first 3 quarters of 2023, we have progressed Squadron 42 to a level of feature complete, which is very significant as a step on our roadmap to the final release for this hugely ambitious AAA game. At our first physical CitizenCon in several years at the Los Angeles Convention Center, we unveiled the progress made behind closed doors, and we're happy to show how this will translate into Star Citizen's universe and the ongoing releases that are planned over the coming months and years. In 2023, we were also very pleased to have completed the acquisition of Turbulent, which we announced in July. As noted in this and previous reports, Turbulent has become quite an important part of our operations, and we have been working with them since the early days of the company's founding. They understand us and our goals, and thus it was natural that we would formalize that relationship and bring their key people into our leadership team. It is great to harness the skills and talents of 200 plus people working there who augment our internal teams and represent a large part of our worldwide workforce, which now exceeds 1,100 devs. Well, actually not devs, 1,100 employees worldwide. In conclusion, 2023 has not been an inexpensive year, but we've had a great record-breaking year again. End to the year, and the targeted investments we've made have been focused upon our goals, setting us closer to achieving our vision and mission to deliver a gaming experience and universe of truly epic scale, fidelity, and quality for all our current and future players and community. Boom! That's it for Star Citizen's financial report and update. I always love seeing this stuff because it gives deeper information about how Cloud Imperium see themselves and how they spent the money and what costs are rising. And yeah, we knew that they're going to have more staff costs. Staff wages are going up. They want, I think, between 1,300 and 1,500 in the next couple of years staff total. They're at 1,100 now. That's a lot of staff. Their studio in the UK is massive. They've expanded the Frankfurt one. They're going to be expanding the other studios around the world. Obviously, Montreal studio, the Turbulent studio, is now officially theirs, and they're going to be expanding that further. I think them having between 50 and 70 million in the bank is pretty healthy, especially if they want to be doing big advertising campaigns and want to have some money just in case that there is a downturn in the economy. But I'm really interested to know what you think. Did you expect Cloud Imperium to actually have more than 835 million-ish funding to date? When are you thinking that they're going to break that 1 billion barrier? Could it be next year? I think it's unlikely, because they'd have to make a huge amount more funding. But with the Squadron 42 release, I suppose they could. But then is it really crowdfunding? As soon as they actually have a live product, it's a little bit different because it's not this crowdfunded money anymore. Yeah, as soon as they have a properly released product, I think it sort of changes a bit. Maybe we need a bit of a breakdown of what's been spent on this product versus what's been spent on the crowdfunding for Star Citizen, and how's that going to change the project. Did you expect CIG to have more in the bank, or their costs to be higher, costs to be lower? Whatever your thoughts or questions, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. The giant ape climbed the skyscraper, swatting at helicopters that harassed him. You look up at the massive 50-foot creature of muscle and hair. He's got you firmly in his grasp. Any more pressure and you'd snap like a twig. He brings you to his mouth, and then you realise you should have got yourself nordvpn.com/BoredGamer. It would have provided you security and anonymity, preventing the great ape from finding you, but also accessibility to some of your favourite shows. Check out the links below for a massive discount and to help support the channel. Talking about supporting the channel, you can help by pressing that join button under my videos or even becoming a Patreon with the links below again. That goes a long way to helping us make daily Star Citizen content. A massive thank you to everyone that does that already or supports the channel in other ways like commenting, liking and sharing videos. We are just about to hit 200,000 subscribers, which is awesome, seeing we are a niche Star Citizen dedicated channel. Every month we have a ship giveaway. For January 2024, we are giving away a Drake Corsair. This is a very popular multi-role, multi-crew explorer ship that is very good at a huge range of stuff in the verse. It also comes with lifetime insurance and a game package, all you need to play Star Citizen, and all you need to do to be in for a chance of winning that is comment on any of my videos made during this month. More details in the video description. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to check out my channel and other videos on there as well, and I'll see you in the verse.